What's up, everybody? My name's Carson. I'm going to show you how I produced, tracked, and mixed the keys in the song High Praise, which goes a little bit like this.
We bring you high praise. We bring you high. Bring you high praise.
Okay, so this is our song. This is High Praise. We've got drums and percussion over here in red. We've got bass in blue. And then we've got electric guitars in yellow, keys in purple, and vocals. And this is the final mix session. So let's start by talking about how the song came together. So first, we started with the lyrics and melodies. We made sure those were really solid. Then it was time to make a demo. And then after the demo was good with everybody, then we had the band recorded. You know, this song actually started with the bass guitar. The bass guitar is really what helped everything fall into place. And the keys are just an amazing kind of texture tool in this song. And so we started with the leads, the kind of upfront parts. As the song was more filled out, then we started layering pads and chords. But the point is, we started with the hook, and I got a lot of help from my friend Chris Worley on this. He did an amazing job writing some of these parts. So let's break some of those down. So I'll talk a little bit about, I'll go through the parts a little bit, and then we'll talk about how we tracked them and how we mixed them. So let's start with the top. So we've got these two plucks here, and I know what these are. So there's a down chorus, and I just needed a little bit of something to help fill out that chorus. That chorus kind of sounds like this, and then I'll solo these plucks, and you can hear what they are.
High praise. We bring you high. Name above all names. We bring you high praise.
So we've got some plucks there, and that's pretty much all they're doing. There is two different patches, and we'll talk about layering and how those were layered in a little bit. Now let's go to this one. This is called Bridge Square. Bridge Square, this is just the lead line in the bridge that doubles the vocal. Kind of video game sounding a little bit, but I think it's cool. And that's the only part that patches in. And then we've got a pad right here, which we've all heard what a pad sounds like. Mostly the pad is just in the down choruses and the bridge. There's no pad in the verses or the choruses. Those are kind of more of a funk type sound, and we don't really need a lot of kind of ambient space there. We need tightness there. So the pad is strategically used. It's not one of those songs where there's just always a pad going. This one is a little more strategic, like this down chorus, for instance.
High praise.
So kind of low there. We can see the filter kind of open up. We can kind of hear it. So like if we jump to this bridge, we've got this interlude where the pads are probably fairly filtered. A little darker. But as we jump to like one of these later bridges, we'll see that those pads are brighter. So this one pad kind of morphs from dark to bright in a really cool way. Then we've got these things called the dings. The dings are basically in just this one chorus, and it actually doubles this guitar. And if you haven't seen the guitar video that we just did, be sure to check it out. It explains how we got all these awesome guitar tones. But back to keys, these dings just kind of double a guitar part happening in the chorus.
High praise. Kings, name above all names. We bring you high praise.
just a little couple stabs there, just kind of fun. And once again, we'll talk all about how we got these tones in just a second. I just want to go through the parts here. So, excuse me, we've got these verse synths here. They're really more electric pianos, and I think we'll be able to hear why. I'll start with this E piano wet right here. I just needed something kind of chimey and bright, and just almost more rhythmic. You don't necessarily hear every single note super articulately, but it just adds a little bit of high end in almost a percussive way. And we can even hear, so that's the pre-chorus part. And then this verse part is a little different. This only comes in verse 2. We just need a verse 2 to kind of pop a little more than that first verse.
Come on, shout like we're free. That we bring.
So it just kind of helps lift that verse 2 a little bit. And in this part, it's actually being layered with another synth, and we'll talk about this synth a little later, but this is basically what it sounds like. It's playing the exact same notes, but it's just kind of thickening up that electric piano right there.
We keep moving, and we will never retreat. 'Cause our weapon is the worship that we.
And then at the very end, we're actually bringing back that pre-chorus part a little bit. And so in that chorus, we're actually putting the pre-chorus part in there, and it sounds like this.
I pray. King above all kings, name above all names. We bring.
Just to kind of open that chorus up a little bit, we wanted it to be kind of full in the fullest chorus, but we also didn't want to just slap a bunch of pads in there. We wanted to kind of stay on theme for this one. And let me look here. All of these tracks to this point have been software based with MIDI, so we'll talk about all those. These tracks down here were all actually tracked analog. Chris Worley's got a couple of amazing analog synths, and we'll go over those in a second. The first off is his Juno. He's got an 80s Juno, and it sounds amazing. So we tracked that. Right at his house, and the first track that we've got with the Juno it's just these chords. So you'll notice there's not a piano in here, and I feel like a lot of people tend to feel like there has to be an official piano in a song for it to be a song, but really you got to pay attention to what the piano's doing, and is it playing a lead line? Is it being intimate? Is it just slamming some chords down? And that's what's happening in this one. And so, it doesn't necessarily have to be a piano. In this case, it's just a synth, and this Juno sounds great. And so if we go to this chorus right here, we can kind of hear it.
I pray. King above all kings, name above.
Sounds really nice. Just a couple little hits there. And that comes in only the chorus. Okay, we've got a couple other Juno patches here. One of them is this Juno Square. And you'll notice this actually doubles the pre-chorus. This doubles the pre-chorus, which also means it comes in at that last chorus just to lift it up like we talked about.
Always reign.
So if I layer it with the piano, it kind of helps things out. Just kind of makes things sound a little thicker, a little more analog. When you have something as bright as the electric piano, sometimes it needs a little meat to it, and the Juno was perfect for that. And in the other case, that other synth was great for that too. So that's all that Square Juno is. It's just for that pre-chorus part and that last chorus. And then we've got another track. This was mostly for dubs, but it's pretty much the same as the Juno chords. these little stabs. I just needed a little something to not make it feel as stale. It was missing just one little hit in these choruses, and that's all this is doing right here. Here comes our stab. That's literally all it is. Just this one little track. Just a little brightness to kind of lift it up.
King above all kings, name above all names, we bring you high.
Very minimal, and but it just means the world to me. So that's why it's in there. Last, we've got these Juno arps, and these are kind of that really pretty, just a little pretty texture going into the chorus. If we didn't have a lot of this Juno stuff, the chorus would be pretty empty sounding. And let's listen to what this texture is right here.
We bring you high praise.
Right here.
King above all kings, name above all names, we bring you high praise.
Right here.
We bring you high praise.
Just nice, very Midnight-esque right there, and I just love the way that sounds. And that is it for our Juno patches. Let's look at this MKS here. It's basically an electric piano. The Juno chords are happening in the chorus, but there is a little bit of kind of a digitalized piano happening in the intro and in the bridge. And so the song starts with a low chorus, and so this is what really kind of helped us out here.
I praise. You high praise.
Sounds really nice. And then we bring it back here in the bridge. Sounds really nice. And then the last thing that we've got here is we've got these bridge synths. And let's start with this OB6. So we didn't just use a Juno, a real Juno. We also used, Chris just got an OB6, and it sounds amazing. But I'll kind of give you a little hint at what this sounds like.
Days stop falling with praise. And fear starts running when we lift up the sound.
And so that OB6, it's pretty brassy. It's got a nice kind of little movement to it. I love kind of how the filter kind of adjusts to the velocity on that one. That's really awesome. Then we've got this little flute. These are basically just emphasizing the guitar part. Right here. Real kind of bright. It's got some stabs to it. This was actually a contact patch. I actually don't have it, though. Well, that's not entirely true. I know I have it. I just cannot find it right now. But if I do find it, I will let you guys know. But that's all this is. It's just a little bit of a stab with the flute. And then this low stab, this is just, it's playing the exact same thing. It's just another layer to go with the guitars and with the flute. Should we put them together? And maybe with the guitars here.
Fear starts running when we lift up the sound. And shake.
And that is, both of these are contact patches, I believe. But the OB6 was obviously like a real OB6. And lastly, the last kind of track we've got here to listen to is this slow bendy thing. And this is like probably one of my favorite things on the track. It is basically just Chris holding a note, and he's just ramping up the mod wheel. Like if he was gonna, or not the mod wheel, but the pitch wheel. He's just like slowly turning that pitch. He's slowly turning that pitch wheel up, and it just adds a nice kind of intensity to it in a fun way. It's not perfectly programmed out. It's just a real player just kind of having fun, and so that's what this sounds like.
Rain stop falling when rain starts coming.
Just a weird kind of little texture there, kind of adds some intensity that's kind of needed in that bridge. And that is it. That is basically the writing. That these are all the parts. And now let's talk a little bit about how we got these parts. So as I said, we recorded these parts a little differently depending on what it was. So half of them are kind of MIDI based, and we recorded them with Omnisphere or Reason or some kind of software. And the other half was actually real analog synths. And so we kind of had to track a couple different ways. But what I will do is I'll go ahead and I'll go through the patches that we used to get some of these sounds. So I produce everything in Ableton, and so we're actually going to pop over to Ableton. This is the demo. This is the demo track. And so first, I'll kind of go through just everything piece by piece. And this first one, I believe, is that electric piano, that pre-chorus piano here. Yep. So let's look at that. So we've got some Omnisphere, and we've just got a Valhalla reverb here. So if I pull up Omnisphere here, it's actually a keyscape patch within Omnisphere. But I basically just grabbed this preset, Duo Hybrid Digital E piano. And what it's doing is it's taking an MKS, and it's taking a JD800. And what I did was maybe adjusted the mix a little bit. We wanted to make sure we had some chorus on it. For a little bit of size there, a little bit of reverb, and like I said, I'm just turning up that treble. I just wanted something super bright. So if I play that track now, just a little bit, and then so that's the patch for the most part. And then let's look at this reverb here. This is the Valhalla Supermassive. Valhalla makes awesome sounding effects. If you haven't checked them out, be sure to do that. And this is just a massive reverb. I'm pretty sure, yeah, again, I picked a preset and just tweaked it a little bit, and it sounds like this. So this is without it. Just kind of dreamy, almost like a cloud setting on a big sky, but a little more lush. And that's basically this tone. This tone didn't really change throughout the song. It is what it is, And by itself, it would probably be a little rough. It probably wouldn't stick out in the mix very well, but we're actually layering it with something else, and that is a synth that we did in Reason. And I actually didn't make this one, I don't think. Sparkle Synth. I believe this is a Nick Staley patch. Nick Staley, very talented keys player from Bethel Music. And I believe this is one of his patches. I don't even know how much I tweaked it. It might have sounded great right off the bat. I love this synth. It is really great for layering. And so I will kind of go through it a little bit, though. So it's a Thor patch, right? And it's got, it's got these... It's got these sine waves here, and it's basically really bright. And as far as the waveform goes, we can see our amp envelope here and our filter envelope here. It's got, not a huge, it's got zero attack actually, and it just kind of works. And then it's got some reverb on at the very end to help it out. This reverb in Reason is amazing. Let's hear what that sounds like. So be sure to check out Nick Staley's patches. Sounds great because when we layer them together, it really helps out. Sounds great. Okay, let's go to the dings. So the dings was actually, basically these two exact same patches, that electric piano and the sparkle synth, but these dings just didn't need as much reverb. And so I literally just copied and pasted them and just turned down the reverb. So like if I listen to this right here, like that's a lot less reverb than this. It's a lot less reverb. And that's all it is. I basically just turn the reverb down because in that chorus, we're not really going for ambient there. We're kind of going for tight percussive type things. So we just turn down the reverb, and exact same on this sparkle synth. Just real tight. So together, sound kind of nice. Okay, let's go to this square pluck. This is our bridge tone right here. And I believe this is a... Okay, this is a patch actually from one of our first records. I actually don't remember. But it's basically just this synthetic trance saw. It's got the filter on it, and it's got 0 attack, so it's real quick. Let's look at these envelopes here, see what we're doing. Yeah, it just kind of cuts off real quick, kind of snappy. And then the what kind of makes the sound for me is this reverb. So if I turn this reverb off, and then we add this reverb, it's a very small reverb. Really just kind of adds something for me there. And then, of course, we are compressing it a little bit since it's plucky. But for the most part, that's all that square pluck is. Just a waveform and a small, tight, maxed out room reverb. And now let's talk about these ambient things real quick. This first one, this ambient delay, I believe this is a Peter James patch, and I love it. It's great for texture. It's basically like a pluck, but it's just got an insane amount of delay on it, and so it gives it a bunch of sustain. Yeah, it's a Peter James patch. You can get all of his stuff on multitracks.com or something like that. And I literally didn't change it at all. I used it exactly how it came, and it just has a lot of sustain to it, and we'll kind of hear what that's doing. It's almost like a sonar. Just a ton of reverb that sticks out for days. I did want it to stick out a little more in those down choruses, so I added this pluck. This pluck is from Alive and Well, song on the first record. And it just kind of, it's not nearly as wet or sustainy, but it gives it a little more of a hit. Just kind of brings it a little bit more forward. And lastly, let's talk about this pad. This pad is also a Peter James pad, I believe. And what I'm doing is I'm just filtering it based on where we are in the song. So this is the beginning of the bridge, but as the bridge progresses, that filter is actually going up. So if I start here, it's at 1.67, then it gets brighter. Then it gets brighter and brighter, and then it just gets maxed out. And then as we fall down to this chorus, it actually comes down again. And so here's what that pad sounds like. So now it becomes kind of a soft, more intimate pad. This is the Cathedral pad by Peter James. Great sounding pad. It's got some nice reverb on it. I'm not adding any extra reverb. It just kind of sounds lovely on its own. And then that is it for Ableton. And then everything else was pretty much kind of made on the fly in the Juno or in the OB6. And, some of these contact patches I don't have, but you get the idea, right? It was kind of a half and half type of deal here for us. So, and so we recorded all these, and then let's say now that we're recorded, how did we edit these? Did we do a lot of processing to these? Did we time a lot of these? And the answer is no. It's kind of exactly like guitars. We don't want to edit too tight. We want to stress a great performance. We want to stress that the performance is on time, has a great feel to it. Nothing that we really have to mess with and fix in Pro Tools. And that is kind of king. So none of those tracks were quantized. None of them were, time aligned or anything like that. All of them actually just sounded great coming into the DAW. And that's exactly what you want to go for. A good performance trumps any good edits every time. So, and another approach that how we do these keys is in the same way that we make sure the guitar tone is real full and big and has all the reverbs and all the effects and all the filters done. We do that with keys as well. The keys tones, once they're being recorded, they have a ton of reverb. They have all the chorus. They have all the effects on that they generally need. That way, when it comes to the mixing phase, it's actually pretty easy to get things going. I'm not doing a ton of processing on these keys because they sound great coming in. And that's the goal, is to come up with something that sounds inspiring right out of the gate, and it'll just make your whole life easier. The only type of edits that I might do, it's kind of hard to see. We can't see it now because I consolidated all the tracks, but sometimes you see these tails right here. This is just reverb just ringing out. We'll listen to that a little bit. Like right here, we can just hear a little bit of kind of fall off. So for the most part, that's okay. I don't really know if I did any of it here, but sometimes in some songs, if I need it to be a little tighter, I'll just grab a track and I might fade it out a little bit, so it's a little tighter. Sometimes the spillover can get in the way. But in this song, it didn't really matter. I only do that if I hear it in the mix and it starts bothering me. But for the most part, that's pretty much the only edits I do when it comes to keys. And I believe that's it for the editing phase. Let's talk about mixing. Let's talk about mixing these keys. We've got everything recorded. It sounds awesome. Any kind of weird edits we had to do, we did them. Now let's talk about mixing them and how to make them make sense with the rest of the song. So I've got all the keys coming into this routing folder right here, and then there's a couple of subfolders in here just to kind of group things together. And so let's start with these plucks. Let me grab some plucks right here. Right there. Sounds good. And so we have the ambient delays. We'll rearrange those real quick. We have the ambient delays like we started with in Ableton, and we're not doing much. You'll find that the mixing phase of these keys is very minimal. There's not a lot of plugins here. It's not like we have drums and we just have an insane amount of treatment happening there. No, the keys sound amazing coming right into Pro Tools. So that's why there's really not a whole lot going on here. But that being said, there always is a little bit to clean up when it comes to making it make sense with the other instruments. So let's get started. This is the FabFilter Pro Q3. It's an amazing EQ. You can use it as a de-esser. You can use it as a dynamic compressor. You can do a lot with this plugin. There is a free alternative called the Nova, I believe. And what we're doing here on those delays is we just had a little bit of mids, maybe high mids, that we just need to tame a little bit, and so we're just cutting that down a little bit. And a lot of times with keys, we just want to find the resonant frequency, right? So I'll play that track without this plugin, and then I'll engage it. We can hear how that frequency just kind of hangs around a little bit. So that's why we're cutting it a little bit. But other than that, that's the only processing that's happening. Once again, all those delays, all that stuff from that Peter James patch, it's already set. It's already tracked, right? So we're not having to do a bunch in Pro Tools. Let's look at the other layer of that, and that is the more Alive and Well pluck here. Without it. With it. Okay, so the first thing we're doing is we're cutting off a good amount of low end here. We don't need a lot of this sub bass frequency. We're not going for punch here. We're just going for a little bit of texture, and that's what we're doing. And then we're taming out these low mids a little bit. Low mids can have a lot of buildup on synths, and so in order to kind of clean it up, we're taking those out. It actually sounds like I'm brightening up the pluck a little bit, but I'm not. I'm not adding any high end. What I'm doing is I'm just removing some mud. So just a little bit of resonant frequency taming there. And that's it. Those are our plucks. Let's go to this bridge square wave. This little pluck thing we've got going on here. And we'll see. We're just EQing it a little bit. Not much. Not really anything at all, actually. If I take it out. Just a little bit of mid-taming. And this is my favorite thing to do to keys, is literally just find a little bit of build-up, find a little bit of resonance, and then just take it out. That's pretty much all I like to do to synths and keys. Just gets a little harsh there, so we're going to take it out. Just cleans it up a little bit. Really minimal stuff, but it really makes a difference in a mix. It kind of gives everything its own identity without anything hurting your ears. Okay, so this is our pad here. Let's just grab this right here. This is our pad. This was that cathedral pad sound, and we're doing a little bit more of an EQ, and then we're adding some chorus to it. So let's start with this. This is the SSL E channel. Very great sounding EQ. This one's by Waves, but there are a ton of alternatives for it. There's a ton of options for it. And let's look at what we're doing with this EQ. So one, we're removing some of that subby low, that low end information. If there's, especially on synths, if I don't need, unless the sound is actively helping the bass, I cut out the bass. I cut out some low end right there. It's just a good rule of thumb with everything, really. Adding a little bit of brightness, not much, and just taming out these mids a little bit. So once again, it almost looks like how the guitars look. We're really not doing a whole lot. We're just shaping it a little bit. So here it is without the plugin. With it. Let's find a little bit of a louder part here. Maybe this is the loud part. Yeah. We're just focusing it a little bit, not much here. And actually, I'm going to go back to this part right here. And we'll talk about the next plugin, and that is we're adding some chorus to it. You know, obviously the pad sounds really great on its own, and I'm really happy with it, but there were a couple times where I noticed the pad wasn't quite as wide as I wanted it to be, and chorus is a great way to add width, especially to pads. And so this is the Tau chorus. This is a free chorus. Like, go grab it. They've got awesome reverbs. This is a free chorus. It's based off the Juno chorus. You know, Junos actually have these two buttons right here. And that's what the chorus is based off of, and then we can blend in how much of it we want. But I think if you listen, you might not get a lot of modulation when you're listening for it, but you will get a lot of space in the left-right. It kind of goes from centered to more left-right, and that's something that's really cool, and that's what I was going for when I added this chorus. So here it is without it. And with it. It's just magical, right? It just makes the pad come alive. And a lot of times, you know, when you add chorus onto the original patch, it helps. But sometimes if you need a little extra width, instead of grabbing that stereo width plugin, chorus is a great way to add some width to it. And that's our pad. And we talked a little bit about how it gets brighter and darker depending on the songs. Now, let's go to these dings. And if you remember, the dings... it's actually that E-piano and the verse synth together. I actually exported them together, and it's actually one track. And so what we're doing here is we're just doing some EQ with the SSL. Let's grab those dings. Grab the dings. Grab the dings. Right there. And what are we doing here? We're cutting out a lot of low end, of course. That's what we do. Taking out a little bit of that top end, and maybe taming out some mids a little bit, but we're not really doing anything with the low or low mids. So here it is with it. Let me solo that. With it. Once again, this chorus, you know, is real tight sounding. And you can just kind of hear it. It almost gets bigger in a bad way. It almost sustains to each note a little weirdly. So that's why we're cutting. We're actually removing a bunch of resonant frequency there. So I'll kind of sweep these knobs and we can hear what's going on here. Makes a huge difference, this high mid. This is basically the exact same thing we're doing with the Pro Q3. We're just doing it with this SSL. But it's those resonant frequencies, right? It's any buildup of extra information that we don't need, and we're just going to remove that. That's all that we're doing with synths, is just checking resonant frequencies. You know, it's not like when I grab a synthesizer, a Juno or something, and I know I'm going to do all this different EQ. No, I'm literally just listening if there's buildup, because synths can really have a lot of buildup just because of the way they sustain. And so that's all we're doing throughout this whole thing, folks. Let's keep going. We've got this electric piano vibe right here. Let's see what we're doing here. This one had a lot of reverb on it, and we're using the Pro Q3 again. We're removing some low end, of course. And then, yeah, a little bit of resonant frequencies here. Just kind of hurts your ears a little bit, so that's why I'm taking it down. Oh, it's so satisfying. It makes all the difference to me. Okay, so let's go to this verse synth. This is the other layer. This is that sparkle synth. Just a little build up there. That's it. How about these Juno? How about these Juno chords here? Let's find a place where they're playing. So we're taking away the low end, obviously, the subby low end, adding a little bit of shine to it. Synths really take that well when you add shine to it. And then some resonant frequencies. And you'll notice we're also compressing a little bit. We're just getting a little bit of evenness throughout that. Very small ratio, basically a 2-to-1 ratio, and we're just getting a little bit of compression just to help it out. But honestly, I like the way that it falls off. I think it serves the song really well. And so that's why we're compressing a little bit. And that's our Juno chords, but we are treating a bunch of the different Juno patches separately because they're playing different things. So this is the Juno square. Let's take a look at that guy. A lot of resonant kind of top end frequencies right here, the kind of painful, kind of needly tones. Just giving it a little bit of control there. How about these? Oh, these stabs. These stabs are probably, yeah, just a little bit, I would say. Not much. Pretty much the same thing as the square wave, actually. We're taming the top frequencies. It actually, is it the same? Oh, it's the exact same. It's the exact same. And I guess it sounded good. Definitely. Definitely. Okay, let's look at this ARP a little bit. Once again, all the effects, the arpeggiator of it, that's kind of already taken care of. We're not having to program a bunch of stuff. That's already taken care of by the time we get to the mix phase. And it looks like it's a pretty similar curve. We're cutting out some low ends, but we're also taming this top end. This Juno had this top end that need to be controlled a little bit. Just a little bit. Yeah, we're actually darkening it. But because of just the way the drums, the cymbals, the vocals have a ton of really bright high end into them, it actually ended up filling the space a little better without that kind of top end in there. But as with most synths, it totally depends on the part and depends on what the rest of the band is doing. You can leave that high end in there if you want. Okay, now we've got our MKS. What are we doing to this MKS? We are throwing some SSL on it, rolling some low end, obviously, And then we're these low mids, any kind of mids. This is a type of patch that it could tend to get muddy. So let's see what we're doing here. Without it. So I can, with my sub in here, I can actually feel a little bit of some weird kind of subbiness happening. So great thing I cut that out. Yeah, let's sweep the rest of these frequencies. Giving that left hand, that low end, a little bit of help, but we're taking out some of that really kind of bloated low end. And that's our MKS. Okay, now we've got these bridge synths, and then we're done. So let's go to this OB6. This is the analog brass patch. And this one is a lot of fun. Love this sound. Once again, cutting low end, and a little bit of muddiness and a little bit of mid-range here. Kind of carving it out, kind of hollowing it out a little bit. Just evening it out a little bit there. And then we're actually compressing this. We're compressing this. This is the Puig Child 670 based on the Fairchild. This is just the Waves version of it. The UAD version rocks. Great compressor. I love this compressor on keys. It kind of smooths things out, not just in a compression sense, but almost as an EQ sense as well. I grabbed a Rock Strings preset and maybe tweaked it, maybe not. Let's see what we're doing. So this part has a lot of kind of in and out going. It's kind of wavy, and I just wanted those waves to be a little more smooth. I wanted a little bit more sustain from note to note. I wanted everything to kind of carry over a little more instead of everything kind of dropping off right after the hits. So here it is with it. Without it. So we're getting some sustain out of it, which is great, but it just adds some oomph to it. It just adds some kind of EQ to it. I don't know what it is, but it sounds great. Fairchild compressors are probably my favorite for pianos and synths and that kind of thing. Let's look at our flute. Let's look at our flute here. The flute kind of adds a lot of high end, which is nice. So without this SSL, which we're cutting low end, adding some high end. So we can hear it get a little darker. And part of that, we can hear it get brighter when I turn on the plugin, let me say. Part of this is because we're adding top end, but we're also removing some muddy low ends. Yeah, that build up right there. That'll kill you with a bunch of synths going. Kind of nice. And then I guess we needed a little bit more EQ. Okay, and this is the Pro Q3 again, but we're actually using this dynamically. Let's hear what it sounds like with it on and then off. Yeah, it's got this really weird kind of needly high end thing going on. And so what we're doing is we're boosting a little bit of that good high end that we want. That kind of nice, bright, almost attack kind of thing. But then in the way up the top end, like way where the cymbals are, 16K, it's got this weird kind of, I don't know, it's definitely digital sounding and it doesn't sound very natural. So what we're doing is we're not just cutting it though, we're dynamically cutting it. So it's only going to cut it if that noise gets out of control. And this is what's awesome about the FabFilter. Without it again. And with it. Just helps it out, helps tame it out a little bit. And that's our flute. Let's look at this low stab thing. We've just got Pro Q3 on it. So this has a propensity to have a lot of low end build up here. And so we're cutting out our low end, of course, but we're doing a big old cut right here. Let's hear what that sounds like. Yeah. So with it and without it, it's got some nice overdrive on it. But we're just taking out some mud there. And lastly, let's look at this slow, bendy thing. One of my favorite things. Not my idea, totally Chris's idea. And we're just doing some Pro Q3 on here. Okay, so this is a perfect example of what a resonant frequency is. There's just this, the sound is going, there's just this one frequency that is just super hot, and there's just so much buildup there. And so that's a great example. This is the basic approach that I take to all synths when I'm mixing them, is just find the resonant mud, cut out the low end, and for the most part, you're doing pretty good. So nice. So nice. That resonant frequency, that's a perfect example of what a resonant frequency is. It's just, it just sounds like that one frequency is like twice as loud as everything else. And so that's why we're doing a steep cut there. And so together, man, these synths really come together really well.
Can't stop falling, but grace starts coming out. And fear starts running when we lift up the sound. And chains stop. Lift up the sound. Chains stop falling. Chains stop falling when praise starts coming out. Sound. We bring you high praise.
All right, and that is how we did the keys for the song High Praise. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already, be sure to like, share, subscribe to stay up with the latest content, because up next we've got vocals for this song, and I don't want you guys to miss it. If you have any questions for me, or comments, or advice, feel free to send me a message. Until then, see you guys next time.